Hello, class! The past few days in social studies, we have been learning about the American Revolution. Let's do a quick little recap on what all we have learned. We have learned that the war was between America and Great Britain. America wanted independence from Great Britain because they began to tax them on everything: their clothes, glass, paper, and even tea. Great Britain did this so that they could pay for the French and Indian War. The settlers in America became very angry, and they said that it was taxation without representation. The settlers decided to rebel and decided not to buy any of England's clothes, glass, paper, or tea, or any of England's other goods. They got so angry that they dressed up like Native Americans and threw a bunch of England's tea into the harbor. We learned that this was called the Boston Tea Party. 2 years later, on April 19th, 1775, the first shots were fired in Massachusetts. This was called a shot heard round the world. Now we know that a shot cannot literally be heard around the world, but that is just what it has always been known as. The settlers decided to appoint George Washington as General and Commander-in-Chief of the American Army on June 15th, 1775. Now I just got this really awesome book for our class library, and it actually takes place during the American Revolution. This book is a historical fiction book, which we've already gone over what historical fiction is, so all of you should know what that means. The book is called The Battlefield Ghost by Marjorie Kyler. This book is based around a Hessian soldier. Hessian soldiers played a big part in the American Revolution. I'm going to give you a quick little lesson on Hessian soldiers so that by the end of it, you'll understand the important role that they played in the American Revolution, and it will help you better understand the book, The Battlefield Ghost. Hessian soldiers were soldiers that were hired by King George III. He was the current ruler of Great Britain during the American Revolution. He hired these soldiers to help them fight against the Americans in the war. Now, the technical term for Hessian soldiers is Hessian mercenaries. Now, I know that is a really big word, but it's okay because I'm going to write it down on the board later so that you can keep that word in your mind as we continue to talk about the American Revolution. Now, the word mercenary means soldiers who were hired to fight in the army that is not theirs, but they fought for money. So, Hessians were actually German soldiers who were fighting for Great Britain's army for money. Since they're from Germany, England is not their home army. Their home army is Germany. Therefore, they are considered mercenaries because they are fighting for England for money. King George III hired approximately 30,000 Hessian soldiers. That's a lot. These soldiers were trained like all of the other soldiers. They were trained to take care of their arms, their clothes, and weapons. There were strict rules that controlled how these soldiers were allowed to walk, stand, exercise, and even dress. England paid $500,000 for 10,000 Hessian soldiers. These Hessian soldiers made up about a quarter of the British Army. Some of the Hessian soldiers were foot soldiers. The foot soldiers were typically older people or even criminals. They usually were there to fight, not for money, but for food. Foot soldiers typically fought on foot. Other Hessian soldiers were paid by money or settled in the New World. If a Hessian soldier were to die in battle, then his death would cost Britain an additional $35. If a Hessian soldier was wounded, it would cost Britain an additional $12. Of the 30,000, only 17,373 of the soldiers returned to Germany. Around 9,000 of the Hessian soldiers died, and the rest of them settled in the New World. If a Hessian soldier was deserted, then the American government would offer them land and 2 cows. Now that we understand what exactly Hessian soldiers are, we can get into this awesome book that I got for our class library, The Battlefield Ghost. Now remember all the things that we have learned about the Hessians because they play a big part in this book. The book The Battlefield Ghost takes place in a home that was around during the Revolutionary War. A little boy named John, his parents, and his sister Lisa are moving into it. The house is over 300 years old, and everyone talks about how a ghost haunts the house. One old lady was chased out of the house and all the way down the driveway. John is very nervous and iffy about moving into this house. He couldn't help but wonder, are all these rumors true? As he walks into the house, up the creaky stairs, he begins to unpack his things. He decided to go practice his Mozart piece on the piano after unpacking. As he played, something touched his hands, and then a crackling noise began. As he turned around, the fire was lit. It was not lit when he walked into the house. John became even more nervous. Who had lit the fire? And more importantly, who had touched his hand? As he goes to bed, he decided to play a prank on his mom and scare her. As his mom comes to tuck him in, he acts like he's asleep. Just as she's leaving, he jumps up and opens his eyes, but no one is there. As he goes to find his mom and dad, they were both busy unpacking and helping out his sister. He freaked out and told his parents, but they told him it was all his imagination. His sister Lisa began to encounter funny things happening to her as well. They both decided to confront the ghost and put an end to this. Will they meet the ghost, or will they not? Is this ghost gonna hurt them, or is he harmless? As Lisa and John stay up to midnight, they wait for the ghost to appear to solve this problem once and for all. But will the problem be solved, or will they just make things worse and upset him? To find out, you're going to have to read this book. And remember, it'll be located in the class library in the back of the room.